Another salvo in the NFC West arms race. The Seattle Seahawks have extended their star wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba at a deal worth over $42 million per year. That is a record for the receiving position. So it puts the Rams on the clock with Puka Nacua. And I think the Seahawks are very happy that they beat LA to the punch, because Nakua's deal projects to be even more valuable than this one for JSN. Also reminds me that Deommodore Lenoir versus JSN was the most overhyped matchup of 2025. These guys talk smack back and forth, yet when Lenoir was covering JSN, only 3 targets for the wide receiver, 1 catch, and 4 yards over 3 games in the 2025 season. I certainly would like to see both of these two competitors lock horns more often. I know that it depends on a multitude of other things. The Seahawks like to go after Renardo Green much more often. But man, I want to see Lenoir against JSN. That being said, I do think that Lenoir is really, really good. One of the reasons why the Rams got Trent McDuffie in that trade that cost 2 first-round picks this offseason was so they could have somebody who could cover Jaxon Smith-Njigba. 49ers do have somebody who can do it in Deommodore Lenoir. We'll see how schematically they change with Raheem Morris, the new defensive coordinator, and Jerry Gray, the new DB coach. Will the 49ers be running the same type of primary zone coverage? Are they going to have Deommodore Lenoir start to trail around really good receivers? We'll see, but this just brought that to the top of mind. But that wide receiver market, at $42.15 million for JSN. Remember that Brandon Aiyuk was at $30 million when he signed his new contract with the 49ers back in 2024. I mean, just think of how much of a bargain that would be considered for the 49ers right now had Brandon Aiyuk just stayed normal. It's crazy to me to think that 30 million, everybody was talking about, well, should he push 30 million or not in 2024? The 49ers ultimately gave in at exactly 30 million average per year. It wasn't the biggest receiver deal of all time. I think Tyreek Hill was still topping the market back then, but we've seen so much inflation since then with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and now JSN over 40 million that the 49ers would be sitting absolutely pretty right now, even if Aiyuk had gotten hurt in week 7 of 2024. They would be sitting absolutely pretty had he just not walked out on the football team. They'd be looking at a deal that is, 25%, over 25% smaller than the top of the receiving market. But the 49ers cannot have nice things at this position. Well, maybe they can. Maybe they can. Mike Evans and Christian Kirk. And I say and because we weren't sure about the exact details of Christian Kirk's arrival to the 49ers, but both of them decided to come to San Francisco for discounts. With Mike Evans, it was obvious, and that was confirmed when we heard the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side of things. Apparently, their first offer to Mike Evans was significantly larger than the one that he ended up signing with the San Francisco 49ers at $14.3 million, fully guaranteed $14.2 million average per year. There were some rumors on that first day of free agency that teams were ready to spend up to $27 million per year for Mike Evans. I am not sure of the validity of those rumors, but I do know that teams like the Bucs were willing to spend more for Mike Evans than he ultimately signed with the San Francisco 49ers. And then you look at Christian Kirk. The 49ers were able to nab Christian Kirk at a salary cap hit of just $2.96 million for the 2026 season. The initial reports were that the contract was worth up to $6 million, but that is $6 million with not likely to be earned incentives. The base value of Christian Kirk's contract is 1 year, $3 million. Kyle Shanahan speaking to Jennifer Lee Chan at the Fanatics flag football event in Los Angeles this weekend said that both Christian Kirk and Mike Evans had opportunities elsewhere for more money, but decided to come to San Francisco. It speaks to the appeal of Brock Purdy. It speaks to the appeal of Shanahan himself. I think it speaks to the appeal of the 49ers organization. There had been some talk from podcasters covering the Washington Commanders that the 49ers are not an appealing place. I just don't think that Brandon Aiyuk is an appealing personality to fit into a football team. But they badly want the 49ers to release Aiyuk. Obviously, there's no reason for San Francisco to do that right now. They're not paying anything for the contractual control. But some of these people out of Washington are trying to make it sound like the 49ers are an undesirable place to play when a future Hall of Famer like Mike Evans, when somebody like Christian Kirk, both decide to come to San Francisco for less money in the same offseason. In fact, you look at the total salary cap hits of these receivers, Evans at $4.25 million, Christian Kirk at $2.96 million. You look at the whole receiver room, it adds up to $11.5 million out of the 6 projected to make the 2026 roster for the 49ers. Aiyuk's cap hit for the 49ers this year is above $14 million. So the 49ers have 6 projected 53-man roster receivers at a smaller cumulative cap hit than Brandon Aiyuk this year. Also, obviously, smaller cumulative cap hit than what Jaxon Smith-Njigba is now going to earn with the Seattle Seahawks. You know, you want to look at receiver inflation, $120 million fully guaranteed for JSN. For Brandon Aiyuk in 2024, when the 49ers signed him to that long-term deal, it was worth up to $120 million total. That's the full guarantees were much smaller, but $45 million in full guarantees for Brandon Aiyuk. So nearly triple the full guarantees for JSN, which are the size of Aiyuk's total contract. $42.2 million for JSN. It was $30 million for Aiyuk. Again, the 49ers just wish that Aiyuk situation would have stayed normal and they would have had a lot easier time throughout 2024 and 2025. Unfortunately, it did not work out, but Mike Evans probably wouldn't be with the 49ers. And Kyle Shanahan said, he's talking to JLC, he was saying that he's got a guy that can stretch the field in a way that he hasn't had before with the 49ers. He obviously had it with Julio Jones back in Atlanta in 2016 when Matt Ryan won his MVP. But now with the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan has a new dynamic with Mike Evans. And, of course, Christian Kirk playing that F receiver position. Going to be fun to watch as well. I can't wait to see what's next around the league with these receiver contracts. It seems like the bottom half of the market has cooled off. Juwan Jennings is still a free agent, but the very elite portion of the market with JSN, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, those guys making more than ever. Insane inflation there. We wait on Puka Nacua, who made Matthew Stafford last year. The Rams find themselves in a similar position to the 49ers of 2024 with Brandon Aiyuk, with Puka Nacua, and that they're rushing to try to cram in another title run with Matthew Stafford before he retires. And that means they're going to, Puka Nacua is going to have some holdout leverage against them, like Brandon Aiyuk did in 2024. I think the Rams are going to have to pay up, and it's going to be, again, these contracts escalate, so it's going to be for more money than JSN for Puka Nacua. And then you got George Pickens over in Dallas, trying to work past the franchise tag, which has been applied to him. And that tag obviously is set at a high level. We'll see if Dallas ends up paying Pickens a long-term deal, and we will see what happens in LA with Puka Nacua. But arms race in NFC West. McDuffie already aboard with the Rams to cover JSN. Lenoir has covered JSN when he's had a chance to, well over the years, and especially last year. Maybe we get some more fireworks. Maybe we get more of a matchup between those two guys. Seahawks spending a lot of money to retain their own over this offseason, and they've had to let some guys go as well, like Kenneth Walker, who's now with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the NFC West, the greatest division in football history last year, might be even better heading into 2026. So get your popcorn ready. That's the alarm update for the morning.